Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Miller, head of GMAT instruction here at Target Test Prep, and thank you for joining me on this latest video. Today we're going to discuss something very prevalent to most GMAT test takers, and that is why was my GMAT score lower than my practice test scores? So look, we've all been there, we've sat down for the GMAT, we've been ready to go, and then when we get our final score, we say, what on earth happened? So today we're going to discuss 6 common pitfalls about why that score may have been lower than your practice test scores. And if you can follow some of these tips that we'll be providing, I have a feeling that the next time you take your GMAT, you'll be ready to go and you'll get the score that you truly deserve. Let's discuss pitfall number 1, not taking your practice GMATs under realistic testing conditions. Now this is huge. I talk to students almost every day about their practice exams, whether at the beginning of their prep, whether it's the end of their prep, and there's one common thread between all these students. They want to do well. I mean, it's just human nature. But sometimes we want to do so well that instead of getting an accurate assessment of where we're at, we're doing things to inflate our score artificially. Things such as not using the same writing utensils that you'll get on the actual GMAT, right? Or not going through all of the sections or completing them. Hey, I can skip AWA, it doesn't matter, it's not going to be graded. Well, there's a mental thing of taking the time to write an essay in some fatigue that can form that when you do it on the real GMAT, it will affect you. So again, if you're not doing that on a practice GMAT, it may artificially inflate your score. Or pausing sections or pausing in between questions where you want to make sure you get a question right, or if it's a question you think you should get right. The point is, all this stuff leads to practice test scores that just aren't accurate. So then what happens? Well, you probably will guess. You go to your GMAT, you sit down, you take the test, and you say, oh gosh, why did my score not reflect my practice test scores? And that answer is simple. It's because you did all of these things that didn't reflect test day. I mean, heck, even making sure you take your GMAT in a similar location to be where you will be taking it on test day is important. All of these things add up. So the moral of this is, look, just make sure that when you take your practice exams, you replicate the rules and the conditions of test day as much as you can. And my guess is those scores will be very accurate in comparison to what you do on the actual GMAT. Let's discuss pitfall number 2, taking mock tests that are not representative of the actual GMAT. So here's the deal. GMAT offers 6 total practice exams, right? Now in the Target Test Prep study plan, that is all we say for our students to do, and truly, that's really all you need to do. It's good to take those tests because they obviously have old, retired GMAT questions, and they're using the GMAT algorithm. The algorithm that nobody knows completely the basis of how it works. That's something that GMAT owns and they always will own. So the issue is that if you're taking mock exams other than the official tests, well, you may be getting scores that differ based on the question types or how the questions are presented, or the algorithm that's presented in those exams. And so you may be crushing those tests, and then you may go to the real GMAT and not get your score, and you should realize, well, it's because I never had an apples-to-apples comparison, so how could I expect a non-GMAT test to be the same as an actual GMAT test? And that could be why your score on the actual GMAT is lower than your practice test scores. So really, it's an easy fix. Just like we tell you to do in the Target Test Prep study plan, just take the 6 official mocks. I know you may say to yourself, well, I want to take as many tests as possible, but trust me, if you use those tests wisely, those 6 should be more than enough to get you prepared for test day. Pitfall number 3, and this is a biggie, over-investing in the first 10 questions of your GMAT. Now, let's say on your practice exams, you don't do that. You do everything the way it should go. You take each question as it comes, and you're not trying to game your test. And then let's say 48 hours before test day, you go to a forum and you say, oh my gosh, I'm reading about how cool it is that if I just spend too much time on the first 10 questions or overinvest and get those right, my score will be set. And then you go to the GMAT and you do that, and all of a sudden your score drops. Well, that means you did something that you probably shouldn't have done. And yes, there are a lot of people out there who have talked about gaming the practice exams that GMAT offers and figuring out that you only need to get the first 10 questions right and then you're set for the rest of the test. But I am here to say that that is not true. First of all, no one really knows the algorithm of the GMAT, even if they've messed around with their practice exams. And secondly, and just on a more practical level, think of it this way. If you truly overinvest in the first 10 questions, if you spend 3 minutes per question on the first 10, or even 4 minutes, well, wouldn't it make sense that that means on the back end of your exam, you're going to basically run out of time and you're going to have to do a lot of guessing, and some of that guessing could be on easy questions? The answer is yes. So when you try to game the exam like that, just realize it's not that simple, and you need to stick to a timing strategy that's truly going to work, and really stay away from these gimmicky things, and especially stay away from these things 24, 48 hours, or even a week before your exam. Trust me, if you do a less gamey timing strategy, it's going to work to your advantage, and you won't find yourself in a position where your score drops on test day. Pitfall number 4, testing anxiety. This is something I talk about a lot with students. So look, the GMAT is an important exam. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not. It does have an implication on your future. It will help you get into the business school that you'd like to get into. So all of that remains true. But you can't let test day grow to this magnitude or place where you're thinking of it differently than how you did on your practice exams. I mean, look, let's say you did the 6 GMAT practice exams. Every time you sat down to take it, you were cool, you were calm, you were collected, and you just performed well. Well, if that's the case, when it becomes test day, you need to sit back and you need to tell yourself, I crushed my practice exams, I am capable, I am ready, and I am ready to crush the actual GMAT. You can't allow doubt to creep in. You can't let the day loom so large that you just get nervous, even though you're well aware of the skills that you have. And yes, there are things that you can do, like breathing techniques and breathing exercises and things you can look into. But one of the things that I always recommend is lean on your confidence. If you were able to score a 750 on a practice exam, it means you can score a 750 on the real GMAT. But you got to have a mindset that allows you to get through bumps in the road, that doesn't allow you to look forward to the bigger picture of what it is you're there for the GMAT and your applications and what everyone else is getting on their GMATs. You just got to focus in the question in front of you. And again, be confident. Know that you've done it well in your practice exams. And if you can do that, testing anxiety will not get to you, and your score should not drop on test day from where you were scoring on your practice exams. Pitfall number 5, burning yourself out before test day. So it's human nature, right? We gear up, we take all 6 GMAT practice exams, we're 72 hours out, we're feeling good, but we realize that we've been studying for the GMAT for months on end. And then we say, well, geez, what do I do with my time? So then your mind starts going, you're like, you know what? Maybe I can fit in another practice exam or retake the first one or do a bunch of problems or go to the hardest problems I can find and make sure I can do them, right? Well, that's a problem, because if you do that, your mind is not going to be fresh for test day. You're going to be tight. You're going to be tired. Or even, let's say you only were able to take 5 of the exams before you take your GMAT. Does it really make sense to take the 6th one 48 hours before your exam? Probably not, because remember, taking these practice exams just as taking the real GMAT, it's like a mental marathon. You need time to rest, and you need time to get your mind off the GMAT. Going back to what we said in the previous pitfall, if you work your way up until the last hour before test day, that can make your mind and your nerves very high going into the exam. So that's another reason not to do it. So instead, give yourself a break. Like, you've been working your butt off, right? Do something fun, stress relieving activities. Go for a walk. Go for a run if that's something you do. Do yoga if that's something you do. Heck, binge watch TV. Anything. Go to a movie alone. It doesn't matter, but you gotta do something where you can keep your mind off of your GMAT, because if you don't, you will probably burn yourself out, and you'll sit down for your test on test day and you'll say, my gosh, my mind is not where it needs to be. And then your GMAT score may drop in relation to what you were doing on your practice test scores. The final pitfall, and pitfall number 6, is making last minute changes to your routine. And this kind of goes in line with a lot that we've been saying up to this point. But look, you have a routine. You get up, you probably eat breakfast, you go to work, you eat something for lunch, you come home, you eat dinner, maybe you go to the gym, maybe you go for a walk, maybe you go for a run, yoga, whatever. The point is, don't 1 week before your exam start changing up your eating habits, right? Don't start doing heavy physical activity if that's not something you do. Because all of these things will affect you physically, they'll affect you mentally. And look, I'm not saying don't make healthy changes in your life. And if you do, just do it gradually over time. Implement healthy changes over time, well before the week of your exam, so you don't find yourself in a position where you're doing something that's going to negatively affect you before your test. Because again, let's say you take your 6 practice exams, you do great. You have a week before your test, and you're like, you know what? Everyone says to keep getting physical activity and exercising. And let's say you haven't done that for months and you go out and try to do a 5-mile run. Just imagine how that might affect you and how that might affect you on test day. So, and it's the same thing with changing up your eating habits. You really don't want to do anything that can kind of make you different before going into your test. So think these things through. If you're just beginning your prep and you know these are things you're going to want to have implemented by the time you take your test, then start doing them now. I mean, you probably have 3, 4, 5 months before you take your GMAT anyway, and that way you're going to be the same person walking into the GMAT who took those practice exams and knocked them out of the park, and then you won't see a score drop, or shouldn't see a score drop, on test day. So that concludes today's video. Thank you everybody for watching, and if you enjoyed this video or some of our others, make sure to subscribe to our GMAT channel. And heck, if you have any ideas of videos that you'd like to see in the future, I welcome you to leave comments below this video. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.